What's up, everybody? My name is Jason Pickett, and I am a choreographer, adjudicator, dancer, creative, and the owner of No Starving Artists, which is a platform dedicated to helping artists, creatives get to their next level. This is a new series we're starting, which is question and answers, Q&As. Have never done this before. I do this a lot on Instagram, but this is going to be the first long form one, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm really excited to be able to dive into some of the questions that I get asked often a little bit more in depth, because on social media, it's kind of hard to contextualize everything that I say. So yeah, I'm excited. So we've got like 5 questions here. If we get through these really quickly, then we'll pick up some other ones, but let's jump right in here. So first question is how to pursue dance while having a different career. I'm actually really excited to answer this question because this is something that I did/do. So throughout like my career as a dance teacher, I kind of bounced in and out of having normal jobs. I worked in a call center. I had a outbound sales job. And then I went to marketing school, and then I ended up getting I freelanced for a while after that, doing like videography and photography and social media, content creation for businesses. And then I happened upon a client that ended up, we grew together. I ended up going full time with them. And that's what I have been doing for the past 4.5-ish years up until 2024. As of this year, I have gone down to more of a part-time relationship with them just because, this dance stuff and No Starving Artists and the podcast and things are growing, which is amazing. But, I think the like straightforward answer is you can do both. You don't have to sacrifice dance in order to pursue a career, because the truth of the matter is that we can have multiple things that we like to do. I like to create content. I like to do marketing for people. And I also like to dance. I like to teach dancing. So I wanted to do both of those things. And the benefit for me was it was a consistent paycheck that I could count on every single month. It was consistent work. And it was something that I really, really enjoyed to do. And it helped me scale and grow and be able to put the time in that I wanted into my dance content, my Instagram content, etc. So I think the biggest thing is, like, if you are pursuing a career, whatever it is, for me, it was marketing. Dance can always be there for you. But there was also times when it was really, really hard. There was times when I was like working a full-time job, and then I was teaching in the evenings, and it was a lot. It really, really was a lot to be teaching 5 days a week and working a full-time job. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and I knew that I loved it, and I knew that I cared about it, and I was passionate about it, so it was worth it to me. So you kind of have to figure out, what is going to work for you and what capacity you want dance to take up in your life. If you want to eventually be able to rely on your dancing as a form of income, then you may have to sacrifice some free time, things with friends, things with family, in order to get to that point. So it all just depends on what you want to do. But the blunt answer is you can do both. You can pursue a career in dance, and you can have a career on the side or in addition to as well. And there's nothing that doesn't take anything away from you as a dancer or you as a professional in that career field. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Next question, how to deal with nerves and anxiety before going on stage. This is something that I talk about a lot with my coaching clients. A lot of my coaching clients have this struggle where they get nervous or they get anxious before they go on stage. And to be honest, a lot of people in general have this, including myself, including the majority of dancers. The thing is, I always quote this really terrible quote from The Good Dinosaur, which is a really subpar Pixar movie. But there's this part in the movie where these T-Rexes are sitting around a campfire and they're talking to the main dinosaur and basically telling him that fear is built into us. It's embedded inside of us. And there's no getting rid of it. There's no changing that. There's no making it go away. It's there, and it's there to stay. So instead of trying to think about how to get rid of fear, you have to figure out how to get through that fear. And that's a really big perspective shift that immediately will help you overcome nerves and anxiety, because realizing that you're never going to get rid of those things. There's always going to be a situation that's going to make you nervous, no matter how comfortable, no matter how experienced you are. So it's about how you can then get through that. That is the most important. And typically what I do after that, and what I advise after that, is to question yourself. Question yourself on those nerves. Why are you feeling nervous, right? And you're going to get an answer, right? Your brain's going to tell you something. It's going to kick something back. Maybe it says that we're afraid to forget something on stage. Okay, well, when was the last time you forgot something on stage? For most of us, it's not very common. Or maybe we forgot something once upon a time, a small part or a piece of a routine. And then you question that and you say, okay, well, what happened? I kept doing the dance. I got done. I got off stage. Exactly. So a lot of times our worst case scenario that's causing those nerves is not actually a worst case scenario. It's just a scenario. And the more that we can kind of talk ourselves through that, the quicker we can bring ease to those nerves, because now we're realizing that, okay, my body's just kicking these nerves on to protect me from this situation that it thinks I'm going to get hurt in. But if I'm not actually at risk to get hurt, then there's no reason for those feelings to be there, right? So it really is just understanding that like nerves are here to stay. And so you have to figure out how you can get through those nerves, as opposed to just kind of letting them fester and grow and snowball into something that takes over your dancing. And that's going to be individual for every single person. Everybody's going to be different. They're going to have a different process, a different way to handle that. But that is my take on nerves and anxiety. What training outside of the studio should elite level dancers participate in? This is a really good one. I think it's a really valid question right now, because I think a lot of dancers are looking for alternatives to their studio, purely because dance is getting so big. We see this with any sport, right? When a sport starts to get really, really big and really, really competitive, people start seeking out as much as possible. I'm going to answer this question from the perspective of that keyword of elite level dancers. So I'm thinking, this is a dancer who is really committed. This is a dancer who potentially sees themselves dancing as a career or past their studio. And the honest answer is it's very dependent. It's very dependent on what you want to do. So I would advise, as you near high school, you really need to start narrowing in on what it is that you might be interested in when it comes to dance. What are some jobs? What are some avenues? What are some pathways that interest you that could potentially be something you want to do, right? What it is that you want to do might depend on what extra things you need to pick up. If you're really, really interested in being in musicals one day, then you probably need to pick up some vocal lessons and some acting lessons. If you want to be, a commercial dancer, or you want to dance on tour, then you have to make sure that, one, you can pick up choreography quickly, that you can remember choreography, that you can make changes quickly. So maybe that looks like just taking more open classes. It really, really just depends. And then we can set our sights on like more short-term goals. Like, let's say you want to increase flexibility. Well, then we're looking at cross-training things, which we should already be doing as dancers in general. So I think if there is a consistent thing that all dancers seek to do outside of their current training, it's some form of cross-training, whether that's Pilates, yoga, weight training, whatever it may be, hiking, CrossFit, rock climbing, something that is active, something that's going to push your body, something that is going to also give you a distraction or a side quest, so to speak, from your main thing, which is dancing. This cross training is going to help you with overall physicality. It's going to help you with stamina. It's going to help you with flexibility. It's going to help you with injury prevention. It has so many benefits, so many, like the benefits far outweigh the risks when it comes to cross training. So it's something I very, very highly recommend for dancers that are, again, at an elite level, that are serious about this, and that could potentially see themselves dancing past high school. So again, I think it really depends on what you want to do. I think you need to figure out where you want to go or where you potentially want to go, and then find people that have done that and ask them what things you should be focused on. And they're going to tell you. Because again, if you want to go, let's say you want to be on a collegiate dance team, then we need to get you into some acro classes. We need to get you into some tumbling classes. We need to get you into some classes that will help you with the things that are applicable to a collegiate dance team. So that's that. Let's see here. What inspired you to create your brand? It's true. I have a brand. It's called No Starving Artists. And it's currently lives in the form of a podcast, of clothing, and of resources for dancers, parents, teachers, and studios. I offer dance critiques. I offer one-on-one coaching. And then again, I have kind of the podcast and some other free resources that are available to anybody and everybody. The goal of No Starving Artists was to really create something that was different, one, that represented who I am, two, and that seeked to open up a doorway or a window of transparency within dance. There was a lot of things that I wondered when I was coming up on my journey with dance that I was never able to get answers to because people didn't really talk about it, or there wasn't opportunities for people to talk about it. I've talked about this a few times on podcast episodes that a lot of the podcasts, the reason that I wanted to create the podcast was because when I was coming up, I wanted so badly to be able to watch interviews of, my favorite choreographers or my favorite dancers. I wanted that content. I wanted to hear what they had to say. I wanted to hear about their process, about their trials, about how they got through them. And it just wasn't a big thing when I was younger and coming up. And so I wanted to create a platform that had that. But the main inspiration was like, what can I create that could potentially outlive me, and that could potentially pave the way for other artists to start monetizing their art in a way that feels good to them. And, whether this is a great example or not, it was really one of the only examples at the time. I was really kind of thinking like, okay, what is, a Barstool Sports of dance look like? What does a dance media company look like? One that isn't, put on by a major event, or one that isn't influenced by, certain aspects of the industry. What does just a third-party dance media company look like? And that's what I'm attempting to create, So the goal is to one day have a platform that houses other podcasts besides just mine, that houses content for creatives, that allows dancers and choreographers to make money off of their work through, some of the things that I'm already doing. So that was really what inspired me, is just, again, this idea of like No Starving Artists, right? The name itself came from the fact that I always felt like as a dancer, people always had this like nasty view. Like if you had, and maybe this was just my perspective, but if you had like a normal job and you also were a dancer, it was almost like seen as like less than. And this is still like a thing now. Like there's so many dancers that hide the fact that they have regular jobs or they have a regular 9-to-5 because they feel like it takes away from their artistry, or it takes away from their like legitness. And I just never understood it. I never got the sentiment behind it because I don't want to be broke. I don't think anybody wants to be broke, right? And so whatever I need to do within my values and ethics and morals, then I'm going to do that. And I don't have a problem with it. To me, it doesn't take away, me having a marketing job for the past 4 years doesn't take away from all of the time that I also was putting into teaching and creating and judging. So to me, like those two things don't align. And so it was kind of this idea, this like, ideation of no starving artists. Like we don't have to be starving artists in order to be authentic and creative and cool. We can make money and we can live and we can support our families and still be creative and have that outlet. So that was really kind of like the main inspiration. All right, last question. Do competitions do anything when a group looks like they lied about ages or levels? This is a really good question. It's a topic I do like to talk about. I've talked about it a couple times before, and I might have a sneeze coming on. It was a burp. Okay, let's get into this because I have a very unique perspective on this. I feel like I don't think this is an issue. I know that's a hot take. I know there's a lot of parents and even teachers out there that probably think that's a hot take and that disagree with me. That's totally fine. I don't think this is an issue. I do not think that the majority of the time studios are intentionally putting routines in lower age brackets or levels in order to win. So let's talk about it. Let's start with one of the biggest contributing factors, which is sometimes competition guidelines are very vague or they're very confusing or they don't really match up with like anything realistic, right? Like if a competition says that if you dance 4 hours a week, then you're in intermediate. Well, I mean, I think we can all agree that 4 hours at Studio A is probably significantly different than 4 hours at Studio B. And so what you're doing in those 4 hours matters. Is that 4 hours of private lessons? Is that 4 hours of hip hop? Is that 4 hours of ballet? Is that 4 hours of tumbling? What we do within that 4 hour block is really, really important. So this already can cause confusion because, you may have a studio that, their dancers do only dance 4 hours, but they have really, really good training. So they're not breaking any rules. They're not going against any competition guidelines. They're doing what the competition is asking them to do. So that's one. Two is understanding that, advanced, beginning, intermediate, and advanced at one studio is not the same as another studio. So again, if the competition doesn't have really clear-cut guidelines and regulations around this, then you're allowing studios to interpret that as they would like to. And so they may, maybe they're a studio that goes to a lot of conventions. And so maybe their dancers at conventions are not advanced dancers. You can't, I just don't think it's fair to expect studios, parents, teachers to know the full context of every single situation they're going into, right? Because I could see people saying like, oh, well, you should know if you're going to a less comp that your kids are going to be more advanced. How do we know that? We don't know what studios are going to be there. And even if we do, we may not be familiar with their kids. So there's a lot of like natural things that can cause what we view as misplacements at competition. The other factor is the vantage point that comes into play. And what I mean is the way that I look at a routine as a judge is very, very different than the way that I look at a routine as a spectator. Because oftentimes I will watch routines, whether it's on judges' breaks or if I'm just at a competition supporting, my wife's studio or whatever it may be, I find myself watching routines and I'm not watching them from a judge's standpoint. I'm watching them from a spectator standpoint. And there's a big, big difference there. And there's levels there as well. I would be an experienced spectator. If you're not an experienced spectator, then you may not know what to look for. You may not realize that turn sequence that looked really good was actually technically not sound. You may not realize that trick that looked really powerful and really explosive was not technically sound. You may not realize that the routine isn't transitioning or isn't using the music correctly or isn't using the stage appropriately. So what happens is people who aren't viewing the routine from a judge's perspective or maybe aren't as experienced see a routine, they think it's a really good routine, and then they go, oh, that routine's in the wrong category, when in reality, it's not. The other factor is there's going to be a top and a bottom of everything. There's going to be a top dancer in every single age and level bracket. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. It doesn't mean that that dancer is in the wrong category. It just means that they're the top of the category they're in. If all of the categories were 100% equally leveled, then we'd have no winners and we'd have no losers. It would just be one big recital. So there's all these different factors that we have to be mindful of. Now, am I saying that studios and teachers and parents never put their routines in lower levels to win? No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is I don't think it's a majority of the issue, and I really don't think it's a huge issue at all. I've judged at a lot of competitions. I've judged a lot of routines. I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've genuinely thought that a routine needed to be placed in a higher level. Because there's also factors like just to me, a dancer having confidence and having a routine that fits them really well doesn't mean that they need to be in a higher age bracket. If anything, it means like the other routines were not matched up with the dancer correctly, because the other problem too is like from a parent's perspective, the teacher will give their dancer a routine that's out of their level. It's too hard for them. The dancer can't execute the routine. So then the parent assumes that that's normal. They assume that that's the norm. So when they go to competition and they see a dancer who has a very well executed routine, sometimes the tendency is to jump to, oh, well, that dancer needs to be placed in a level higher. No, your choreographer just needs to do a better job. So there's all of these different factors that come into play, and I just don't think it's that big of an issue. And I think there's much bigger fish to fry. I think there's much more important things that we need to focus on as a community, as opposed to just where people are placing their routines. Because again, I don't think it's a huge, huge issue. One person's take, maybe it's not your take. I don't know. That's going to be it for the question and answer. I really hope you liked this. If you're interested in coaching, if you're interested in dance critiques, if you're interested in checking out my podcast, you can do all of the above at www.nsadance.com. You can follow me on all social media at Heyitspickett. And drop some comments. Drop some questions in the comments that you want to see answered on the next video, and I will include them if they seem like a good fit. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.